Hello, it's Flow Ninja here, John Liu. I wanted to do this recording, and it's to do with a bunch of updates we've been adding to Flow Studio in the last week or two. So I thought about various different ways, writing a blog, do a proper recording, and then I thought, why don't I just do a live stream, record it as we go, and then see how it works. So this live stream might be quite empty. I don't think there's anyone watching at the moment, but that's fine. For me, a lot of it is just testing and understanding how to do live streams, and next time maybe I'll advertise this better. If you happen to jump into the stream, feel free to ask me any questions, and I will get started. So what you're looking at is Flow Studio. This is the tool that I built to help me manage my hundreds of flows and thousands of flow runs. And in the last week or so, we've had several updates, and I wanted to just show you. I think we've had updates since 1.20. So I'll just quickly go through a bunch of these. So the first one is in Migrate. So in Migrate, which is the tool that helps us move and copy flows from one environment to another. I'm on the dev branch right now. The prod version is a few versions behind, still on 1.16. So we are a couple versions ahead in the dev branch. 1.16 has, okay, so there are actually quite a few big ones. I might just go through the big differences. 1.18, this HTTP cancellation when navigation fails. This happens when, say for example, if you are if you say here, I'm trying to read all my flows, and this makes dozens of requests in the background. But if I were to say navigate away to say Migrate, or to like sometimes during the so basically sometimes during the request, there's a dozen requests that's happening, then it stops the application from responding and letting you navigate away. So since this 1.18 update, 1.18, which is here, this will actually implement HTTP cancellation. So when you navigate away, it will cancel all the existing requests, and then that means your browser can make new requests. Basically, in the past, they will continue until they finish, and then the result is discarded. So that's kind of wasteful. We made a bunch of changes to Migrate. So these are changes that are in this Migrate screen here. When I select a migration plan, so from this source environment to a destination environment, you now have the option of saying, okay, sometimes you build a migration plan of say 10 things, but only one failed, so you just want to rerun that one migration. So you could do that now. You could just take these boxes are not persisters, so each time you load the migration plan, this will be all unchecked. Just waiting for, so you could migrate just one flow. That should happen quite quickly, so that happens fairly quickly and copies the flow from this environment to that environment. We added this export selected plan. So previously we do have the import and export, so it will save, and then it will show me a big JSON of all the migration plans. Now this actually includes a JSON for every plan that you have, which is quite a few. So this new export, just the selected one, that one will show just the current plan. So you see it's squiggly, it's not an array, and it's just the current plan. In fact, you could use it to say rename the environment. Done. That's really refreshing. And you see it's been renamed. Cool. So those are the changes that has happened in Migrate. We're doing a bit more in Migrate, probably layout changes, but for now the main features, these are the updates. The other change that we've done is to the runs. So let me head over to runs. I need to pick a environment that has some actual flows. Here we go. Let's see that one. So in Flow Studio, when okay, so these are what are these? Anyway, I'll just explain. So in Flow Studio, let me close this guy. In Flow Studio, when we click on the run spark lines, it will take us right into the runs. It's the same as, say, if you right click and say do, if you click and get latest runs. This will show me all the runs for this flow within the latest page, usually 50. And what we do is then we take, for many triggers such as, say, SharePoint, Dataverse, SQL Server, we have some idea of the JSON data that created this, that caused this trigger. So we go into this JSON object and we dig out the ID. So you see this 220 is the ID of the row in SharePoint that caused this trigger to run. And this particular one is some sort of invoice file or a view your apps probably, and also another invoice. Yeah, so this is a trigger ID. Now the trigger ID actually, if I click and show you the flow, the trigger ID is actually in the data that caused this. So if I click this down low, you'll see the trigger ID somewhere here. Yeah, the internal ID is say 210. Okay, now Flow Studio goes and fetch all this JSON, figures out the ID from this action, so that we don't have to go through this history, because in this history you can't really tell which ID it is. Like, you don't know which one is 210, 117, or whatever. So Flow Studio goes and makes that read. But when it does that, sometimes when there is too many requests, you get a situation where some of these records are not able to be read. So this will be kind of blank, right? So with this particular update, we will log if there is a request to that row and the error for some reason, usually a throttling error from the Microsoft API. Then this will show a little kind of an error warning icon with a tooltip that tells us that, hey, there is been a error requesting this trigger data here. And the second update we made is this refetch error runs, and that will go through this list and find the rows that have had these errors and basically refetch just these ones that are missing. Okay, so these two combination is to help us. So sometimes if it's a throttling problem and you just have to wait a couple minutes, give the APIs a few minutes to rest, and then while keeping the screen run open, hit the refresh error runs, and that will go through all the runs here and then fetch anything that has missing trigger data. And that also reflects in the export to Excel. So if I hit export to Excel, you see the trigger ID, the trigger text, and then if I scroll right to the end, there's a trigger data. That's originally raw JSON if you want to do something with it yourself. And then we have a new column here for error. And the error is more for debugging. So if there's some sort of throttling error, that data will be logged into that column that gets exported. So in my case, these 5 records don't have errors. So we don't see anything there. Okay, these updates in Flow Studio will go live probably within this week. There have been some pretty big updates. The other thing that I'm thinking to do is do more changes around some of these other what I consider tools. So in Flow Studio, really, we use flows, or we use admin views or flow view. Some people use the Power Apps view, but everything else are tools. So by actions is a report of flows. Migrate is a tool. Clipboard is a tool. Viewing approvals is a tool. Viewing connections is a tool. And settings currently are quite empty. So I plan to do some tidying up of these and probably have one big heading for utilities, and each one of these will become a utility. These will function more like Migrate in that each tool has a bit of intro, has a bit of helper text, has a wizard where you set up the parameters for running this tool, and then I can see the result of this too. So similarly for search will go into that kind of format as well. Okay, I might just end this stream and check out this recording. I hope everything goes well. Happy to read any feedback, and yeah, next time I'll announce the stream early, and then you can jump in and ask me any questions. You can ask me Flow questions or just Flow Studio questions. Happy to answer anything. And I'm gonna sign off now. Bye.